Everyone is holding their breath and looking at the instrument where these three people are. Now they no longer dare to say anything about Jason. It is still perfect in the third level, which shows that the Kingdom of Orlando regards Jason as the leader, which is definitely not the case. Whatever you do, no matter why Jason's level shows that he is a first-level low-level spiritual disciple, the facts have proved that Jason definitely has the ability to be the leader of the Kingdom of Orlando. Don't you think even Jimmy and the others from the Kingdom of Sod were eliminated? 18 years old, then Jason is only 18 years old. He can break into the third level at the age of 18. What kind of talent is this? Everyone was secretly frightened. Although the three people on the screen are currently everything on display is perfect, but Jason is only 18 years old. What's going on? It's been so long since this third level, so why is Jason still perfect? Yes, it's normal for His Highness Sri Lanka Kalakun to remain perfect. As long as the two of them are in good condition, nothing is impossible, but Jason, how long can this Jason remain perfect? Although everyone present has a certain degree of affirmation of Jason's strength, in their hearts, they still feel that the next one to fail will definitely be Jason. After all, Jason is only 18 years old, too young. Moreover, Jason's performance before the previous test was even more clueless. Now the only thing they are paying attention to is when Jason will make a mistake and be eliminated. All the audience present are focused on Sri Lanka, Loku on the instruments of the three Jasons. I wanted to see how long these three people could last. As for the other testers, basically no one paid attention to them. As time passed, the three people on the screen, the display is still in perfect condition. Perfect, still perfect. Time passed by for dozens of minutes. Almost all the audience were waiting for Jason to make a mistake, but no matter how much they waited, the instrument where Jason was sitting still had a perfect green light. Suddenly, the hearts of these spectators couldn't help but arouse waves of exclamation again. How is this possible? Even Master Silton and others in the VIP seats nervously looked at the instrument where Jason was, and felt shocked in their hearts. Bo Tao, Sri Lanka, they are already almost as talented as they were when they were young, so who is the 18-year-old Jason? A genius who surpasses them? God, are you kidding everyone? Everyone. Just when everyone was amazed in their hearts, the sound of a mistake suddenly reached everyone's ears. Haha, let me tell you, how could Jason remain perfect all the time? Suddenly there was a shout from the crowd. Haha, that kid finally made a mistake, but he is still a rare genius. He is just a little behind compared to His Highness Sri Lanka. Some viewers let out a long breath of relief and started talking eagerly. The one who made the mistake just now seems to be Loken of the Dongi Kingdom. A weak voice came from somewhere in the crowd. Lokuan? Impossible, are you kidding me? Luoquan is a 4th-level low-level elixir master. How could he be the one who made the mistake? That's right, that's right. Everyone looked at that person with disdain. He made a sound of contempt, then looked up at the big screen with a look of contempt for that person on his face. But when they saw the subtitles on the screen, everyone's expressions instantly froze, and they all stood there dumbfounded, petrified on the spot. The following lines of words were clearly displayed on the screen. Number 1, Sri Lanka, perfect. Number 2, Loken, excellent. Number 5, Jason, perfect. This everyone's faces were in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost, and they murmured, even the 4th-level low-level elixir master Luo Kuan made a mistake, so how could Jason not make a mistake, Oh my god, wouldn't you say that Jason is stronger than Loken? Impossible, this is impossible. All. Just when everyone was shocked, another mistake was heard. It's okay, it's okay. Then Jason made a mistake behind Loken. It must be luck. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but found that the word perfect behind His Highness Sri Lanka changed to excellent at the next moment, and the subtitles behind Jason are still so dazzlingly perfect. The person who followed Loku Enju by mistake was not Jason, whom they were looking forward to, but Sri Lanka, who everyone was most optimistic about and felt had the best chance of winning the championship. Wow, at this time, the surrounding area of the stands was completely boiling. It was incredible. This beep, a sharp sound suddenly sounded in the field. The third level was over. Sri Lanka, Loken, and Jason. Once again, we entered the fourth level together. The third level has been passed perfectly. The fourth level is in progress. Looking at the subtitles displayed behind Jason's name, Roberts, the first elixir of the Easti Kingdom, and Dubai, the first elixir of the Kingdom of Sad, looked at each other speechlessly. What showed in his eyes was incomparable shock. Even when they participated in the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference, they failed to pass the third level perfectly. What's more important is that the other party is only 18 years old now. How come such a genius was given to the Kingdom of Orlando? It would be great if it belonged to your own kingdom. Just when Silton and the others were extremely jealous, Rudolph had a leisurely smile on his face, feeling extremely proud and happy in his heart. How long has it been? How long has it been since the Kingdom of Orlando has been in the limelight at the Magic Medicine Master Conference? Now, Rudolph has finally waited for this moment. It turned out that 3 people entered the fourth level together. 3 geniuses competed on the same stage. In previous Elixir Master Conferences, no one could enter the fourth level at all. This time, 4 people entered the fourth level at once. I don't know which of the 3 of them will be eliminated first due to negligence. Everyone looked at each other. This time, no one dared to say anything about Jason. What's wrong with Jason's young age? The only perfect person in the third level has shown his strength to everyone present. Next, everyone in the audience all stared at the screen intently. Time passed little by little, and their hearts became more and more nervous. Suddenly, machine, bang. The number 2 instrument suddenly made a cry, and then the tester door banged. It suddenly opened. Wow. The entire stand was in complete chaos. Lokushur turned out to be Lokuen, and the first person eliminated in the fourth level was actually a fourth-level low-level elixir master from the host Dongi Kingdom. Lokaun. There was a buzzing sound in the crowd. After Lokan came out of the tester, his eyes immediately fell on the number 1 Sri Lankan instrument next to him. He saw that the fourth level displayed on it was still in progress. After the subtitles, Lokan's eyes couldn't help but darken. Bang! At this moment, another roar came. The number 1 position of Sri Lanka, which had not made any mistakes before, also quickly turned on the red light. Then, Sri Lanka, who was full of annoyance, also walked out of the tester. After seeing that Lokuan had come out of the tester, Sri Lanka's originally annoyed face suddenly showed a smile of victory. From Sri Lanka's perspective, among all the contestants, the dark horse of Lokan, who is also a fourth-level low-level elixir master, can give him a bit of a threat. Now that the opponent has been eliminated before him, he should be a well-deserved winner. First. Alas, this fourth level is really too difficult. There are too many categories of element factors, and the reaction speed is too fast. I really don't know how the senior who was the only one to break through to the 5th level did it. When I think of the previous level with the situation in the 4th level, Sri Lanka couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration. It was too difficult, it was really difficult. Sri Lanka and Lokan looked at each other coldly, and then looked towards the field with smiles on their faces, they received warm applause from the audience. However, what responded to them was a strange silence. All the spectators present, including masters such as Silton, and even the contestants waiting for the test in the stands, all stood up straight, stretched his neck, and stared at the back of the 2 people for a moment. It seemed that behind the 2 people, there was a top-notch beauty taking off her clothes, eyes that were reluctant to even move. This? What's going on? What are they looking at? Sri Lanka and Lokan, who originally thought they would be greeted by cheers from the audience, suddenly felt extremely depressed and disappointed. Not knowing what happened, the 2 of them immediately turned around and faced the crowd. Looking at where they were looking. Behind the 2 of them, the number 5 tester was lighting up the perfect green light, and on the screen above the tester, there was this line: "The third level passed perfectly. The fourth level is in progress." Sri Lanka and Loken were immediately dumbfounded. Who was in this number 5 instrument? Even he failed, so why is there anyone else taking the test in the fourth level? Their brains stopped functioning for a moment, and they woke up after a while. The name of the player in position 5 was recalled in their minds, and a clear face gradually emerged in their minds. Sri Lanka and Loken both opened their mouths and their eyes were huge. There was a hint of horror and disbelief in their eyes, and they murmured, "Jason, that number 5 position seems to be that Jason. How is this possible?" Everyone tensed their nerves, waiting for Jason's failure. Indeed, even Sri Lanka and Luo Kuan, who were 4th level low-level elixir masters, failed successively. This little-known man, who was only 18 years old, a guy who is a 1st level low-level elixir disciple like a spiritual medicine master, is still persisting. This is really unbelievable. They would rather believe the news that a full-scale war broke out on the mainland today than they can't believe what is happening in front of them at this moment. It was in such a dead silence that I didn't know how long it had passed before a sudden change appeared on the screen of tester number 5. As soon as this change happened, everyone in the audience let out a long sigh of relief, and their extremely nervous faces also showed a look of relaxation and relief. It failed. That guy finally failed. Yeah, it's incredible. In the end, it was Jason who persisted until the end. This Jason is so awesome, he actually picked both His Highness Sri Lanka and Loken. Failed. But fortunately, he finally failed. Oh my god, if he hadn't failed, I almost thought he was going to pass the 4th level. Just as everyone was talking about it, he stood upright and half-crouched to sit down. At that moment, suddenly a familiar sharp sound sounded throughout the audience. On the big screen, the subtitles behind Jason's name once again changed to, "The 4th level has been passed perfectly, and the 5th level is in progress." At the same time, everyone's eyes suddenly widened, and their half-crouched bodies stood there stiffly, with an ear-piercing creaking sound coming from their throats, and they were completely stunned on the spot again. The 5th level, this, sea level 5, what is this concept? Of all the people present, no one knew. Since the opening of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference in the Northwest countries, a total of 29 Spiritual Medicine Master Conferences have been held. Except for a few that have been suspended due to some special reasons, the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference every 4 years has been held in the Northwest countries. More than 100 years ago. In the 29 Elixir Master Conferences over the past 100 years, most of the champions broke through to the 3rd level as 3rd level senior Elixir Masters in the first competition, and every few Elixir Master Conferences, there will be 1 or 2 geniuses who can enter the 4th level. Those elixirs who enter the 4th level will generally become the number 1 elixir master in a kingdom and the leader of all elixir masters in a kingdom after they grow up. In the first test of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference, there was only one person who broke through to the 5th level in more than 100 years. That was Master Airily, the champion of the 7th Elixir Master Conference, a myth among the elixir masters of the Northwest countries, and finally reached the 7th level of Advanced Elixir Master. At that time, Airily was famous in the Northwest countries. He participated in the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference at the age of 22 and won the 5th, 6th, and 73rd championships, respectively. Grandmaster Yao's strength broke through to the 5th level in one fell swoop, and finally failed. And Airily has also become a myth among all elixirs in the Northwest countries. Even on the mainland at that time, his reputation was extremely famous. More than 100 years later, Jason became the 2nd player to break into the 5th level. Unlike Airily, Jason is only 18 years old now. Hua! Dip Zena, Master Silton, and others suddenly stood up, their expressions filled with emotion. When Rudolph saw Jason enter the 5th level, his right hand holding the teacup couldn't help but tremble. The boiling water immediately burned his throat, but he didn't even notice it. Although Rudolph knew that Jason was very strong, he couldn't help but be surprised after seeing Jason break through to the 5th level. Master Airily left an unattainable mountain to all the elixirs in the Northwest countries. As long as they are native elixirs in the Northwest countries, all the elixirs have him as their idol. However, today, there is finally another person who has set foot on the path that Master Airily once walked, becoming the 2nd elixir master in the history of the Northwest countries to break through to the 5th level. Just when all the spectators, players, and masters in the audience were surprised by Jason, Jason at this moment was completely integrated into the fusion of elemental factors. In the white void space, Jason stood there with his eyes tightly closed. Around his body, there were countless densely packed elemental factors of different shapes and colors floating around. These elemental factors are constantly combining to change the elemental form, either intersecting in pairs or in combinations of 3 or 3, flying in this small space, colliding with each other, and appearing extremely chaotic. Such violent and diverse elemental reactions may not be able to be controlled by even the 5th level elixir masters in Sri Lanka, let alone the 4th level low-level elixir masters like these in Sri Lanka. A trace of extremely powerful spiritual consciousness was released by Jason, and the end of each spiritual consciousness affected one or more elemental factors. In addition, Jason's hands were shaking irregularly in this void space at the same time, but it was this kind of irregular shaking. Every time it came down, those elemental factors were like soldiers under the command of a general. According to they lined up their troops in their own order. These seemingly meaningless wavings represent the highest attainment of the technical flow spirit medicine created by Jason in his previous life, the Dao Wu Wei. Under the command of Jason's hands and spiritual consciousness, no matter how chaotic the elemental factors in the void space are, or how violent the reactions between them are, they can all be controlled within a very small range by Jason. Find the element factors that should be combined with each other, combine with each other and change, and there will be no big waves. This feeling is so handsome. Jason closed his eyes with a faint smile on his face. His whole body had been completely integrated into the transformation of elemental factors. In Jason's feeling, he seemed to have become a part of these elemental factors, participating in every reaction between them. All the elemental factors seemed to have become his friends, his brothers. Happily, he walked around laughing and feeling their emotions. The true meaning of elixir, yes, this is the true meaning of elixir. Jason has completely integrated into it at this moment. At this moment, he has forgotten that he is undergoing an assessment, and even forgot about the reaction between elemental factors. Instead, these elemental factors are allowed to combine with each other freely according to their own personalities and emotions, and Jason himself has become one of them, floating in the ocean of elements. The audience outside naturally don't know how Jason feels in the cabinet. They are all waiting for Jason to fail out of the 5th level. Although they are full of admiration and shock for Jason at this moment, no matter how strong Jason is, after all, it is impossible to compare with Master Airily, the strongest elixir master in the Northwest countries at that time. Master Airily, even with the strength of a 5th level low-level elixir master, could not break the 5th level. Naturally, Jason also could not. No. However, what shocked everyone in the audience was that as time passed by, the light on the tester in position 5 where Jason was located always lit up perfectly green. Perfect, still perfect. This Jason has been in the 5th level for such a long time and he has never made a mistake. It's incredible. Could it be that after 100 years, the myth of a spiritual medicine master is going to appear in our Northwest countries? Oh my God, if this continues, Jason won't even be able to break the 5th level, right? Jason, God, are you possessing this boy? Some viewers saw the perfect green light that was always on, and an exaggerated thought suddenly appeared in their hearts, and then he shook his head violently and murmured in his mouth, impossible, impossible, it is impossible for Jason to pass the 5th level, not even Master Airily can pass it. It is impossible for anyone in this world to pass it. Although everyone is not optimistic about Jason, the expressions on everyone's faces are still extremely excited. Yes, no matter how long Jason can persist in the 5th level, starting from today, they will witness the birth of a new myth, the myth of their Northwest countries. Just when they were thinking wildly in excitement, beep, the 5th level has been passed perfectly, the 6th level is in progress. The familiar sharp sound of breaking the level sounded like thunder in everyone's ears again, and words flashed on the big screen, and everyone's faces suddenly turned extremely red, with incomparable shock in their eyes. Oh my god, it's really broken. Then Jason actually broke the 5th level. Is that a test that even the mythical master airily failed to pass? No, impossible. Kingdom of Sad. The first spiritual pharmacist Dianbai suddenly let out an exclamation, and his eyes were so wide that they almost burst out of his eyes. He showed no trace of the demeanor of a master. Even if I were asked to test this 5th level, I might not be able to pass it, then. Jason, actually Dubai opened his mouth wide and was speechless. Looking at the perfect green light representing the progress of the 6th level, if everyone was shocked by Jason's feelings before, then now, these people all became extremely excited. Perfectly breaking through the 5th level? This is something that has never happened in history. Even the mythical master airily can't do it. But now, someone has actually done it. Then the other party's understanding of the true meaning of the elixir can really only be described as being as pure as fire, reaching the pinnacle, and being superb. If the mythical master airily can be called the king of medicine by the world, then this Jason now definitely surpasses the king of medicine. This is such an exciting thing. Break the level, break the level. Come on, Jason, come on, you must beat the level. Perfect. At this moment, everyone went crazy, looking at the tester where Jason was sitting feverishly, mouthing, yelling wildly, extremely crazy. Can he really set a record? Can he really become a peerless genius who can overcome all 6 levels of understanding the true meaning of elixirs? Sri Lanka and Loken, who had been dissatisfied with Jason before, no longer felt jealous in their hearts. Instead, they were just deeply shocked. Break the barrier, break the barrier. Everyone shouted in unison, the sound shook the world, even Master Rudolph and the others shouted excitedly. Suddenly, the screen of tester number 5 where Jason was sitting jumped. This was just a changing trend, and everyone outside the venue tensed up in an instant. At this moment, all breathing stopped, and the entire square filled with nearly 100,000 people was silent. Everyone stared at the huge screen in front of them with their eyes wide open. Beep, the sharp voice sounded over the square again. Number 5, 6th level, perfect breakthrough. Silence, deathly silence, followed by a huge cheer. Hua! Breakthrough, he really broke through. Perfectly, he broke through the 6th level perfectly. Oh my god! Except for the mistake in the 1st level, he was perfect in all the other 5 levels. Breakthrough. Jason, it's terrible. For a time, the whole square resounded with deafening cheers. The sound shook thousands of miles, soared into the sky, and echoed in the wide square for a long time. Pop, under the attention of everyone, the tester at position 5 was finally opened. Everyone held their breath and looked at the figure slowly walking out of the tester with admiration. In the history of the Northwest countries, there is an unprecedented genius, Jason. See, as soon as Jason's figure appeared at the tester port, Sijalenka and Loken rushed forward immediately. Haha, little brother Jason, congratulations, you have perfectly broken through the 6 major barriers all the way. Little brother's attainments in the true meaning of elixirs are definitely the first among young people in hundreds of years. Luoquan stepped forward and laughed. He smiled and looked at Jason with an extremely friendly smile on his face. Although Luoquan said that he admired Jason, he still emphasized Jason's attainments in the true meaning of elixirs. Sri Lanka also stepped forward. You are very good, but I will let you know that the preparation of the real elixir is not only about the understanding of the true meaning of the elixir, but other aspects are also extremely important. The champion this time will definitely be mine. Sri Lanka looked at Jason arrogantly, with admiration in his eyes, but also full of confidence and unconvinced. Ever since Sri Lanka won the championship at the age of 21 in the last Spiritual Medicine Master Conference, Sri Lanka has always been in the Northwest countries. They all claim to be the #1 genius elixir master, but now, Jason has emerged from the sky and passed 6 levels in a row, which makes him extremely admired. At the same time, under Jason's huge pressure, his heart explodes. They have strong arrogance and unyielding beliefs. They are both the best in the kingdom. They have been extremely proud since childhood, and naturally, they will not give up easily. Jason's understanding of the true meaning of elixirs is strong, but no matter how strong he can't changing the fact that he is only 18 years old. Both Sri Lanka and Loken believe that in other aspects of elixir science, he must be the strongest person in this conference. Jason, congratulations, our Orlando Kingdom, this time, hope, it's all on you. Alice also stepped forward, with a smile on her face. Her expression looked extremely calm on the surface, but her heart was filled with uncontrollable waves. It wasn't until this moment that Alice finally understood why her elder brother Dios looked so excited every time he talked about Jason. Even his father and Master Rudolph had such a tone of voice when they talked about Jason. They are all so kind. This seemingly young boy does possess an irresistible charm and self-reliance. The other contestants in the Orlando Kingdom, who were originally full of jealousy and resentment towards Jason, at this time, their expressions suddenly changed. There is no trace of resentment anymore, there is just admiration and fanaticism. Jason, Jason! The audience in the audience stretched their necks and shouted at the top of their lungs. The huge wave of sound echoed throughout the square, deafening. Even Master Silton and the others couldn't help but rush to the test platform to ask how Jason managed to break through the 6 levels perfectly when Jason just came out of the tester. After hesitating for a moment, Master Silton and the others finally resisted the impulse and sat on the referee's bench pretending to be calm, secretly convincing themselves, calm down, we are all judges of this conference. The top elixir master in the Northwest countries must be calm. There is nothing extraordinary about breaking through the 6 levels perfectly. Yes, it is just the understanding of the true meaning of elixir. It does not mean how deep that kid is in elixir. Science. Achievement has been achieved. Yes, but that's it, we are all masters, we must be graceful and graceful. All the masters suppressed the itch in their hearts and sat there solemnly. Occasionally, they glanced at Rudolph standing aside, with a look in their eyes. Reveal naked, undisguised jealousy. Oh my God, why didn't such a genius come from our kingdom? How great would it be if such a genius were attracted to our kingdom? These masters are so confused that they are going crazy. And Rudolph and Lin are. He was sitting there with a smile on his face, looking at Jason on the stage with a smile on his face. What is going on? Facing the extremely crazy people in the audience, Jason, who had just realized the true meaning of the elixir, was completely confused. Not caring about why everyone in the audience looked at him with such surprised and complicated eyes, Jason came to the host and asked loudly, "By the way, did I pass this round?" The host, the corners of his mouth twitched involuntarily, he wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and nodded hurriedly, "Passed. Thinking of Jason asking about the rules at the beginning, he said ironically, "If you want, you can try pass all 6 levels at once." With this sentence, the host even wanted to cry at this moment. Jason's question also suddenly woke up the other contestants and the host, who were in shock. Now they were in the process of elixir. It was the first test of the conference. Immediately, the host, who came back to his senses, immediately took the microphone and shouted loudly, "Everyone be quiet, please be quiet. The game is still going on. Please don't affect the players' tests." And the players who had passed the test, such as Jason, Sri Lanka, and Loken, were taken to a corner of the competition table and sat there quietly, thinking about the previous test or adjusting their status, waiting. The next competition is coming. It's a pity that after Jason broke through 6 levels in a row, the audience didn't care about the remaining contestants at all, and instead discussed below who could win the championship. This time, although Jason's previously godlike Zhongmei broke through 6 levels in a row, he still only had 3 points. Only a few spectators believed that Jason could win the championship, and most of the remaining spectators were still optimistic about Sri Lanka and Loken on the stage. In the history of previous elixirist conferences, the player who clearly leads in the first test has a high probability of winning the final championship, but it is only very high. For example, in a certain elixirist conference, all the players failed in the 3rd level. If a player enters the 4th level, then the player who enters the 4th level has at least half the probability of becoming the champion of this conference. However, Jason, who was only 18 years old, was too young. The first test is to control everyone's spiritual consciousness at the same level. The postgraduate test is about the understanding of the true meaning of elixirs. In addition to this aspect, a true elixir master also has an understanding of pharmacology, understanding of material science, control of spiritual knowledge and spiritual power, sensitivity to elixir potions, and many other aspects. The preparation of elixir potions is a complex process, and a spiritual apothecary is generally a knowledgeable master. These things require years of preparation and practice before you can slowly master them. It does not mean that having high talent in a certain aspect can make up for it. In these other aspects, Jason, who was only 18 years old, was at a huge disadvantage. Not to mention anything else, not to mention the control of spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, just talking about the intensity of spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, the 25-year-old Sri Lankan Highness has reached the realm of the 4th level intermediate heavenly spiritual master, and the 20-year-old Loken is also a 4th level low-level heavenly spiritual master. But what about Jason? No matter how talented Jason is, regardless of whether his level of only a 1st level low-level elixir disciple is real or fake, no matter how awesome he is, his spiritual knowledge and spiritual power are estimated to be at the level of a 3rd level senior spiritual master. In fact, as they guessed, Jason's current spiritual master level is only a 3rd level low-level spiritual master. For a time, everyone on the field had their own thoughts, waiting for the start of the second competition of the conference. Time passes slowly like sand between fingers. Boom. I don't know how long it took, but a huge sound of gongs and drums sounded in the sky above the square. Teams of guards wearing armor and sharp eyes walked onto the test platform and moved all the 100 testers down. Nearly 1,000 contestants from all over the Northwest countries have all completed the first test. At this moment, there are only about 400 contestants left on the competition stage. The originally extremely crowded competition stage suddenly became crowded. Much emptier. Okay, the remaining 413 people are all elixir masters who passed 2 levels in the first test. The host shouted loudly with the microphone in hand. The audience in the audience gave warm applause to the contestants who passed the test without hesitation. Now, please adjust your status. In 10 minutes, the second competition will begin. After the host finished speaking, another team of guards stepped onto the competition stage. This time, in the hands of these guards, all they moved low tables one after another, 413 in total, and placed them neatly on the written examination table, and on the low tables, there were small boxes one by one. 10 minutes later, the host once again walked to the front of the competition stage. Okay, there are a total of 413 tables on the stage, and each table has a number. Now, all the players who passed the first round are asked to find their own tables according to the number of their name on the big screen. As the 413 contestants were looking for their positions, the host continued, "This second competition is to test the contestants' control over spiritual consciousness and spiritual power in the preparation of spiritual potions. Please choose the box in front of you. Squat down." The contestants on the stage opened the boxes in front of them without any hesitation. Suddenly, the sound of opening the lids of the boxes could be heard in the entire square. In the box in front of everyone, there was a potion bottle with an orange elixir placed quietly. Under the sunlight, it exuded a dreamy and gentle light. Other than that, the entire box was empty. I think all the players have seen the bottle of orange elixir in front of them. This bottle of orange elixir is made from a mixture of red and yellow spiritual element liquids. The rules of this level are all contestants did not use any instruments, but simply used their spiritual consciousness and spiritual power to separate the two different spiritual element liquids in half an hour. Now, I announce that the second competition will be held. Let's officially begin. What's going on? Why aren't you even given instruments? You just use spiritual consciousness and spiritual power. That's right. How do we separate this elixir? Are you kidding? What are you doing? It's so difficult. It's too big. I don't believe that others can do it, but I can't. For a moment, the entire competition stage was buzzing with discussions. Many contestants were scratching their heads, looking left and right, with embarrassment on their faces. Some players were frowning and thinking, constantly searching for a better method. When these players usually prepare spiritual potions, their spiritual consciousness and spiritual power are only used to control the reaction process of the spiritual potions. Like now, they directly add the two elemental liquids in a bottle of spiritual potions without using any instruments. Separation has never been attempted. As for some strong players such as Sri Lanka and Lokusi, they did not talk nonsense, unfolded their spiritual consciousness, and carefully analyzed the elemental composition of the orange elixir in front of them. Quiet. Seeing the noisy competition stage, the host shouted loudly, "Please compete in peace of mind. If anyone whispers, or makes endless noises again, they will be immediately disqualified." Everyone was suddenly in a state of awe, and did not dare to make a sound. When they calmed down, they had different expressions. Some were frowning in thought, some were confident, or some were gnashing their teeth. They had different expressions. It was really all kinds of expressions on all living beings. But as time went by, most people began to try to control their spiritual consciousness and separate the orange solution. Haha, Roberts, this question you asked is quite tricky and weird. At the VIP table, Silton chuckled while stroking his gray beard. Rudolph also sighed aloud. These little guys usually think of themselves as outstanding, but now better. In this game, many of them are probably going to fail. It's okay, kill their majesty. That's fine, these little guys always think that they are so great when they are half full of water. It may not be a good thing. All the elixir masters at the VIP table started talking and commenting. Roberts, the #1 elixir master in the Dongshin Kingdom, smiled slightly and said, "Since it is an elixir master conference, it is natural to assess everything related to elixir masters. In fact, this second assessment of spiritual knowledge and spiritual power is difficult to say, but easy to say. As long as it is an elixir master who studies, even a low-level elixir master of the 3rd level can do it. May pass the assessment, and if you just make a lucky break and don't have solid basic skills, even a 3rd-level senior elixir master will probably fail." Roberts, you are right. If you want to go all the way and win the championship, you have to assess everything. The remaining players in the end are the players who truly understand the science of elixirs. Otherwise, other elixir masters will probably know it in their hearts. You won't be convinced. Haha, that's right. It seems like these little guys are in trouble. Everyone laughed out loud. Hey, what is that Jason doing? At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly came from the audience stage below. When they heard the name Jason, these elixir masters were also shocked, and they all turned their heads and looked at Jason's location. I saw on one side of the competition table, Jason was holding the bottle of orange solution in his right hand, shaking it slightly in midair, his eyes full of seriousness. Well, Jason doesn't think that just shaking it like this is enough. Can you separate the two elemental liquids? Isn't it? What's going on with Jason? If he keeps shaking the solution like this, even if his spiritual consciousness separates the two elemental liquids, they will probably be mixed together again, right? This Jason weird, what is he doing? All the elixir masters were full of doubts. Generally speaking, if you want to separate, you put the elixir on the table, and then analyze the elemental structure in the solution through your spiritual consciousness, and then use spiritual consciousness and spiritual power to separate the two elemental liquids bit by bit. This is what Sri Lanka and Loken did on the field. According to the strength of each elixir master's control of spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, and the level of understanding of elixirs, the speed of separation will also be different. Outperform. But Jason's slight shaking there confused everyone present. If they could really separate these two elemental liquids by shaking them, all the elixir masters would not need to take this second test, and they would all pass directly. Who can't shake them? A 3-year-old child can do it. Things to do. If Jason had not participated in the first assessment before, I am afraid that many viewers would have started scolding him directly. But after the first game, when Jason passed the 6 levels, all the audience I no longer dare to underestimate this young man who is only 18 years old. He is frowning and full of doubts. In their opinion, Jason was just shaking around randomly, but in fact, Jason was making an attempt that he had never done before. Whether it was in his previous life or after his rebirth, Jason had always had a doubt in his mind. The confusion is that after he was promoted to the 9th level elixir master in his previous life, no matter what breakthroughs and improvements he made in his technical skills, he was still unable to advance to the 10th level medicine god. Jason has been troubled by this problem for a long time. However, in the first game before, Jason passed 6 levels in a row, and after understanding the true meaning of the elixir bit by bit, this question finally had an answer. Everything has its own emotions and its own character. This is true even mountains, rivers, and spiritual elements are the same. The majesty of the mountains, the vastness of the sea, the passion of fire, the softness of water, everything has its own unique character, and the same goes for spiritual elements. Although Jason in his previous life had studied technical flow to the extreme, in the final analysis, technical flow was just the ultimate expression of physical understanding during the preparation of elixir potions, and without spiritual knowledge and spiritual power, Jason could not truly complete it. Integrate into the preparation of elixirs and realize the true essence of elixirs. Every step in the process of preparing the spiritual potion was just to observe the physical state expressed to the extreme. After rebirth, Jason subconsciously used technical skills when preparing spiritual potions. Although he also learned the use of spiritual consciousness and spiritual power from Bispham and Saha, but whenever he encounters any difficulties in the preparation of the elixir, Jason will involuntarily use technical instead. But now, Jason finally understood. When watching the 2nd level assessment, Jason relied on his incredible technical skills to completely separate the two elemental liquids in less than a minute, but Jason did not do so. He wanted to use his understanding of the true meaning of elixirs and use the method of a real elixir master to separate the two elemental liquids. Shaking the potion bottle slightly with his right hand, Jason's spiritual perception has been completely integrated into the orange solution. In Jason's perception, the bottle of solution in his right hand is no longer just one solution, but has become two individuals bonded together, but with completely different personalities. These incompatible individuals are entangled with each other and appear extremely out of place. Come on, come on. Jason brought his emotions into the solution. Let us all separate and enter the embrace of freedom. Jason murmured in his mind, and his spiritual consciousness was while swimming in the solution. The unique shaking of his right hand combined with the released spiritual power formed a unique. Gradually, under the vibration of this frequency, the two different spiritual element individuals that were originally bonded together gradually separated and became a single free existence, wandering in the solution, looking for their respective camps. And Jason was inside, feeling the emotions of the spiritual elements, becoming one with them in this state of absolute fusion with the elements. Jason's spiritual consciousness and spiritual power grew at an unprecedented and terrifying speed. Slight fluctuations of spiritual power were generated around Jason's body, and the spiritual elements suddenly flocked toward Jason's location crazily. Now Jason's spiritual consciousness and spiritual power are growing at a rate that is often thousands of times faster than that of other people. What's going on? Wayne, who was sitting there quietly and looking at Jason with a smile, suddenly changed his expression. With his 8th level Emperor spiritual master's strength, the first one to discover Jason's abnormality. Then why does Jason's spiritual consciousness grow so fast? Nowitzki, the number 1 master in the Kingdom of Weiss and a 7th level intermediate imperial spiritual master, also stood up suddenly and looked at the competition stage with a look of shock on his face. Jason's location. What an astonishing speed in absorbing spiritual elements. Then Jason actually started practicing during the competition? Immediately afterwards, Di Lin, Dongxing Kingdom's top master Kakori, and others also stood up suddenly. His expression was full of astonishment. Silton and other elixir masters were also extremely depressed. This Jason, during the competition, actually started practicing directly and caused such a big chaos. What kind of thing is this? Jason, what is he doing? Even Rudolph looked stunned. The audience below, on the other hand, looked surprised when they saw Silton and the others. They couldn't feel the changes in Jason's spiritual consciousness and the fluctuations of spiritual elements between heaven and earth, but they had puzzled faces. What happened to these masters? Did something happen on the stage? It seems not. Boom. At this moment, a huge sound of gongs and drums sounded in the square, and the prescribed half-hour had expired. Stop. The host shouted. No matter how unwilling they were, the elixir masters who were still busy stopped and looked at the host who was looking at them with. Okay, now all the players are asked to bring the elixirs in their hands to the tester for testing. The host waved his hand, and several guards immediately carried an instrument that was as tall as one person. The players followed their numbers in order, walking towards the instrument, waiting for the final judgment result. Many contestants were nervously holding their own boxes containing potion bottles. After half an hour of separation, each contestant's potion bottles were originally uniformly orange, but now they have become darker colors due to their separation. Not the same. The first person to take the medicine box for testing was a young man of about 25 years old wearing a black robe. He was extremely nervous and took out a trace of yellow and red from the box. Most of the solution was still, the orange medicine bottle was placed in a 4-slot in the middle of the instrument. The 2 contestants at the back, under the host's instructions, also took out the medicine bottles in advance and prepared to step forward to test. Drop. A light came out of the instrument and hit the medicine bottle directly. The separation of the medicine liquid is 30%, failure. A line of words clearly appeared behind the name of the number 1 in the big screen, and then a huge red cross appeared on the name, and the player's entire information disappeared from the big screen the next moment. Oh? The player suddenly hugged his head, his eyes showing a trace of despair, his entire face suddenly turned gray, and he retreated with a dejected expression. Due to the failure of the first player, many players who were not very confident in themselves became extremely nervous, and many people's palms were filled with sweat. The second player then carefully placed the potion bottle in his hand into the groove. The medicine bottle in the man's hand already contained a lot of red and yellow solutions, and about 1/3 of the orange liquid was left. The 3 colors each accounted for about 1/3 of the medicine bottle, and they were clearly distinct. The liquid separation degree is 60%, passed. Congratulations. Looking at the subtitles on the big screen, the host nodded and said with a smile. The player's face suddenly showed a hint of joy, and he stood aside excitedly. The separation of the medicinal solution is 50%, failed. The separation of the medicinal solution is 60%, passed. The separation of the medicinal solution is 30%, failed. Soon, the contestants on the entire competition stage were testing the elixirs in their hands according to the numbers. The vast majority of the contestants here ended in failure, and only about a quarter of the contestants passed. Test. Some of the players who passed stood aside with excitement on their faces, while those who failed walked off the platform in great dejection. The next test had nothing to do with them. The players on the stage, when we were testing, the audience in the audience were also having their own unique fun. Look at this next one, the three colors of red, yellow and orange each account for 1/3, I guess it is 60%, can it pass? 1/3 each? Are your eyes dazzled? There are obviously more oranges, so the contestant will definitely not be able to pass. 50% is the most, I think it's also a little more orange, I guess it's a bit confusing. The audience guessed the degree of separation based on the color of the solution in the medicine bottle in the player's hand. After the player put the medicine bottle into the instrument. Medicine, the liquid separation is 50%, failure. Ha ha. The person who had guessed before suddenly laughed with great excitement, while the person who had not guessed had a depressed face. So far, the strongest one is Jimmy from the Kingdom of Sad, with a solution separation of 70%. I don't know how much of the separation between His Highness Sri Lanka, Loken and Jason can be achieved. With their strength, it must be at least 70%. Many viewers are extremely looking forward to seeing the test of Sri Lanka, Loken and others. As the test time passed, Loken finally came to the tester under the gaze of everyone, and took the test from the box. He took out the medicine bottle. Wow! Seeing the color of Loken's potion bottle, everyone in the audience suddenly exclaimed. Thanks to Loken, look at the color of the solution. It's almost no longer orange. I think it's at least 80%. That's awesome. It's really amazing. Amid people's discussion, Loken casually put the medicine bottle in his hand into the 4 slots. Different from the extremely nervous expressions of other players, Loken's face was extremely calm, with a slight hint of excitement. The smiling face was full of confidence. The liquid separation degree is 80%, passing with excellent results. Wow! The crowd once again let out bursts of exclamations. 80%, the only 80% in the audience, excellent pass, this instrument actually has a 2-word comment added. The 4th level low-level elixir master is really different, awesome, awesome. Even Master Roberts, the first elixir master of the Dongi Kingdom, also he nodded with a smile on his face, his expression full of satisfaction. Listening to everyone's discussion, Loken stepped aside with a smile, and then his eyes fell on the faces of Sri Lanka and Jason in the crowd. The two of them were the only ones Loken wanted to defeat. The team moved forward again. Among the remaining players, the best ones were only at 70%, unable to reach Loken's 80%. Soon, it was Sri Lanka's turn again. After seeing the medicine bottle that Sri Lanka took out from the box, the smile on Loken's face couldn't help but froze slightly. Look, there's no orange color in the medicine bottle in His Highness's hand? Let me see, let's see, it's true, they are all red and yellow. The separation degree of His Highness Sri Lanka is not 100%, right? That would be awesome. In Sri Lanka's medicine bottle, there is almost no trace of orange. The red and yellow elemental liquids are clearly separated in the middle of the medicine bottle. All the audience are watching with great anticipation as Sri Lanka puts the medicine into the bottle. The bottle is placed in the tester. The liquid separation degree is 90%, passing with excellent results. Alas! What a pity! Seeing the clear words 90%, the audience let out a sigh of regret. It's still a little short of it. Just give me some time. Sri Lanka also shook his head regretfully, with a trace of disappointment on his face. It depends on Jason now. If Jason can't pass 100%, I'm afraid no one on the field can have that strength. It's Jason's turn to test soon, everyone, take a look. People are looking forward to it with fiery eyes. It fell on Jason in the crowd. After stabbing more than 30 people without testing, it was finally Jason's turn to test. All the audience stared at Jason's right hand that stretched into the box, their eyes wide open. It's so big that I'm afraid I won't be able to see clearly later. With everyone looking forward to it, Jason finally took out the medicine bottle from the box. When they saw the potion bottle in Jason's hand, all the audience were stunned for an instant, their eyes widened with an expression of extreme astonishment, as if they had seen something incredible. What's going on? What Chingma? Jason's hand was filled with a completely orange medicine bottle. It was almost the same color as before the game started. A slight difference. Not only were the audience extremely surprised, but even Sri Lanka and Loken on the stage, and Master Silton and the others, their faces were full of astonishment for a moment. Judging the degree of separation from the color, although it may not be accurate, but it is a close thing. The orange potion bottles in Jason's hand can only explain one problem. Jason did not separate them at all before. This Jason, Master Rudolph, stood up suddenly, with a hint of disbelief on his face, and even more worry in his expression. If Jason fails directly in the second game, then the Kingdom of Orlando will probably fail again in this elixir conference. Jason? Why is this? I'm afraid Jason will break the record again this time. Well, the 0% separation is indeed a record that cannot be surpassed. The audience was extremely shocked. After everyone came back to their senses, they immediately started talking one after another. For a while, the whole square was filled with countless noisy voices. However, Jason, as the person involved, still stood there as if nothing happened, not at all bothered by the comments around him. And there are some emotional fluctuations. Dip. A beam of light came out of the instrument and hit Jason's medicine bottle with a completely orange solution. Suddenly, it's all beeping. The test instrument suddenly screamed rapidly, and the light on the top of the instrument, which had never been on before, flashed with a dazzling green light crazily. What's going on? Suddenly, everyone's attention was focused. Impossible. After seeing the subtitles displayed behind Jason's name on the big screen, everyone suddenly screamed, their expressions dull. The liquid separation degree is 100%, perfect, pass. Looking at those big words, at this moment, Silton and others suddenly felt that their hearts suddenly tightened. Silence. There was deathly silence. The originally noisy and lively square fell into silence for an instant, and everyone's faces had a comical look of sluggishness on their faces. The entire square was so silent that the sound of a pin dropping could be clearly heard. Here, am I dreaming? An audience member twisted his right leg in disbelief, and a sharp pain instantly entered his brain, but he murmured without any reaction, I am indeed dreaming. Looking at the subtitles on the screen in stunned silence, everyone found it difficult to accept it at this moment. The medicine bottle in Jason's hand was obviously orange at the beginning, but why did the instrument show a perfect pass? This is wrong. Is the instrument broken? A slight voice of doubt came from somewhere in the crowd. Everyone woke up in an instant. Yeah, why didn't I think of it? The instrument is broken, the instrument must be broken. Someone in the crowd shouted loudly. Ahem. At this time, the host also recovered from his daze and said, Dear audience friends, there is a slight malfunction in the instrument. Please wait a moment, we will come up with a spare one soon. The instrument is tested again. As the host finished speaking, several guards once again carried a tester and walked onto the test stage. See, soon, Jason's bottle of potion was once again put into the groove of the second tester. Everyone was eagerly waiting for it beep. A light came out of the instrument and shone on it. Jason's solution was completely orange on the medicine bottle. Do-do-do, the second instrument screamed like the first. The top of the instrument flashed with a blinding green light crazily. The liquid separation degree is 100%, passing perfectly. The comments on the big screen were already 100% perfect. What's going on? Isn't it a problem with the instrument? Could it be that the solution was really perfectly separated by Jason? Everyone said this, but the host was wiping a cold sweat in embarrassment. Seeing that the host was delayed without reporting the news that he had passed, Jason could not help but frown slightly. Understanding why everyone was so surprised and confused, he took out the orange solution from the 4 tanks in full view of everyone, and then his right hand shook slightly. In the astonished eyes of everyone present, the bottle of orange solution in Jason's right hand began to have a trace of red and yellow solution appear at the top and end. The 2 colors came from the bottom up and the other from the top down, like magic. Generally, it spread slowly and quickly occupied the entire medicine bottle in a short period of time. After a while, there was no trace of orange in the medicine bottle that was originally filled with orange solution, leaving only 2 colors, bright crimson and dazzling bright yellow. Each occupied half of the medicine bottle, one up and one down, complementing each other. That's it, that's it. In the VIP seats under the stage, Master Silton and others, who were full of doubts at first, all looked a little surprised after seeing this scene. The 2 elemental liquids have actually been separated for a long time, but they do not occupy half of the country. They are still harmoniously floating in the potion bottle. What a good method, what a good method. This kind of spiritual consciousness controllability. Tisk tisk, Silton, the master, and others uttered exclamations from the bottom of their hearts. A stroke of genius, a stroke of genius. After getting hints from Silton and other masters on the referee's bench, the host was embarrassed on the stage and didn't know what to do. Then he breathed out a relaxed breath and shouted, "Congratulations, Jason, for passing the first round. The second game has entered the 3rd game below." Wow! With just one sound, there were bursts of explosions from the audience, followed by long and warm applause. However, Jason, as the person involved, without realizing it, he walked to a corner of the high platform and quietly waited for the 3rd competition. 10% separation, 10% separation. Sri Lanka and Loken both had a bright light in their eyes, and a strong sense of alertness was revealed. They also walked aside and closed their eyes to rest. The test was still in full swing, but they ignored it. In their eyes, only Jason and the other party could pose a threat to them. After a while, the test was finally over. A total of 413 players participated in the test, but the one who passed in the end, less than a quarter. There were only 102 players left on the entire high platform, and among them, except Jason, who passed with 100% separation, Sri Lanka passed with 90% separation, and Loken passed with 80% separation. In addition, there is a contestant from a small principality in the northwest, who also passed with 80% separation, showing extremely strong control over spiritual consciousness and spiritual power. Apart from this, the remaining contestants only passed with 80% separation. The separation between 70% and 60% passed. The contestant from a certain small principality also attracted the attention of some big forces on the field. In addition to competing for the strength of talented alchemists from various countries, this Elixir Master Conference is also a search for outstanding talents. Excellent place for seeds. Some outstanding players from various small principalities or small forces may be recruited by major powers and organizations once the competition is over. As for the principalities where the players are originally located, they are also willing to dedicate the talents of their own countries. After all, the hometowns of these players are in their own countries. When the players grow up and have a place in those powerful countries, they will naturally be able to help themselves. The motherland is very busy. After the test, all players had a quarter of an hour to rest, and within that quarter of an hour, a team of guards held boxes one by one and placed them on the low table in Chapter 102 on the high platform. Okay, now all contestants are invited to go to their low tables according to their new numbers on the big screen. A quarter of an hour later, on the high platform, the host suddenly let out a loud shout. The two players immediately walked to their respective low tables one by one. The third level, dispensing medicine. The host waved his hand. Please choose the box in front of you. If you write the wrong one, 2 points will be deducted, and the contestants are asked to fill in it carefully. What? Will points be deducted if I make a mistake? Many players suddenly let out bursts of complaints and murmurs. Quiet. There was a smile on the host's face, but this smile looked so cold to the players. The rules of the competition are naturally to prevent some players from randomly matching and trying to get through. The host's cold gaze passed over the faces of all the contestants. Remember, in this competition, no contestant is allowed to whisper to each other or look around. Otherwise, he will be immediately disqualified from the competition. Okay, that's it for the rules. Now, the competition begins. The contestants all fell silent. As the host blew the horn for the competition, everyone lowered their heads and carefully analyzed the 10 materials on the white paper, frowning and thinking. There was a sudden silence on the entire competition stage, without a trace of sound, and the audience naturally knew that this was a critical moment, so they all kept their mouths shut. The entire square was filled with solemn silence, giving people a rather quiet feeling. For a divine feeling. After a while, the rustling of paper and pens began to sound on the competition platform, and they began to try combinations. However, more players frowned and sweated profusely. Looking at the 10 materials on the white paper, Lokan couldn't help but reveal a confident smile on his face. Lokan's deepest knowledge and proudest aspect was in elixir material science. Without even thinking about it, Luoquan had already imagined the formulas for 2 elixirs in his mind. However, he was not in a hurry to write. Instead, he looked at the materials one by one, analyzed them carefully, and studied them. Take it down. At this moment, a burst of noise suddenly came from the side. Several guards who were standing quietly around the high platform looked at each other with eagerness. The motionless guards suddenly rushed up and killed a contestant who was pale with fright. He held up his arms and took him down. I didn't peek. The contestant was so nervous that he couldn't even finish his sentence. He tried his best to defend himself with a tearful face, but only received a disdainful reply from the host. Sneer. Under the gaze of a row of elixir masters and experts at the referee's table, any tiny movement of these players cannot be hidden from their sight. Trying to take a peek is tantamount to wishful thinking. The information of the player who was brought down was on the big screen behind the high platform. Suddenly, everyone in the audience knew the name and country of that person. Not only did they lose their own face, but they also hid their country. Ashamed, I'm afraid that when the player returns to his own country, the family or organization he belongs to will be under pressure from all aspects of the country. With this player's warning, the remaining players on the high platform all looked at their noses and hearts, not daring to look around. They all restrained their minds and concentrated on the white paper in front of them. A few minutes later, Lokan carefully considered and thought for a long time before finally picking up the pen beside him and preparing to fill in the first formula on the white paper. At this moment, Lokan suddenly heard an uproar coming from the silent crowd. He couldn't help but turn around and saw Jason at table 21, already holding a white paper in his hand. Walked towards the host expressionlessly. Why is this guy so fast? How many minutes has it been? Luoquan was extremely surprised. Generally speaking, no matter how confident a player is, he will definitely fill in a few formulas. Think about it carefully again, or see if you can come up with a new formula, but this Jason Lokan couldn't help but shook his head secretly. He was just a little surprised by Jason's speed. This Jason was so fast. There was no time to fill in a few formulas, and if they were filled in incorrectly, points would be deducted. Look at Jason's strength. Don't fail the third round because of sloppiness. That would be hilarious. Idiot. Except for Lokan, The other contestants also had a hint of ridicule on their faces when they saw Jason handing in the paper so quickly. No matter how many papers you have filled out, no matter how confident you are in yourself, since if you still have time, why not study more and fill in a few more details? In this kind of competition with a specified time, handing in the paper early is nothing more than grandstanding. Just when all the contestants came to their senses after Jason handed in the paper, they concentrated on filling in the blank paper. Jason's blank piece of paper has been handed over to the desk of the first referee, Master Silton, by a staff member. Silton frowned and looked at Jason's white paper, while several other elixir masters, including Master Rudolph, also gathered around and looked at the white paper together. With just one glance, Silton and others were stunned. See on Jason's paper, he first wrote down the 10 materials, and then the names, origins, forms, cultivation, collection, preservation, medicinal properties, physiological properties, and efficacy of the 10 materials were all written after the material names. After filling it out completely, it's time to combine the various materials to form the formula for the elixir. A piece of white paper that was originally blank is now densely filled with words. More importantly, it has only been a few minutes since the start of the second competition. This means that Jason was writing these contents. There is no time to think at all. Moreover, the content of those materials is so detailed that it looks like it is an encyclopedia of elixir medicine materials compiled by famous mainland experts. Even some of the material properties on it are more detailed than the analysis in those encyclopedias of materials. The ice-cold attribute of the snow mussel fruit belongs to internal cold. If you make an ice-cold spiritual potion, you must add yenlian grass to consume part of the cold poison in the snow mussel fruit. Only in this way can the effect of the ice-cold spirit-like potion be maximized. Otherwise, not only will it not be able to achieve the effect of the medicine, it will also cause some damage to the body of the ice spiritual master. I see, that's it. Roberts on the side looked at Jason's explanation of the material, snow mussel fruit, and his whole face changed. He suddenly showed a burst of excitement, and murmured to himself with a twinkling light in his eyes, "No wonder the last time I studied the frost potion, I always felt that the effect of the frost potion was not good enough. It seemed that something was missing. It turned out to be because the reason for the internal cold in the snow mussel fruit. Wonderful, wonderful. Come and see this fire dace grass. As the most basic material in fire elixirs, fire dace grass is not only used in low-level elixirs, it has a wide range of uses, and it also has its own unique effect in high-level spiritual potions. In the preparation of anti-inflammatory potions in 5th-level low-grade spiritual potions, adding a small amount of fireweed can this. After reading the analysis of each material, Silton and others looked at each other in shock, with incomparable shock in their eyes. Jason explained every piece of material in great detail, many of which explained the pharmacology of the material. Even Silton and the others who came up with the questions didn't know much about it. Moreover, when Jason analyzed the characteristics of each material, what he said was well-founded and well-founded. He analyzed the characteristics of each material to the extreme, and his words were precise and thought-provoking. Underneath the materials, Jason wrote down in detail the elixirs that could be combined with these 10 materials, a total of 13 types, ascending from low to high according to the grade of each elixir. Seeing the 13 elixir formulas, Silton and the others were stunned, with shock on their faces. This question was asked by several of them together, but the standard answers given by them could only produce 10 kinds of elixirs. But Jason actually gave 13 kinds of elixirs at once. All the 10 elixirs in their minds were included, and 3 other elixir formulas that none of Silton and the others had ever heard of were also given. If they just give out the formula, ordinary people, Master Silton and others, will directly judge that the 3 formulas are wrong, but this Jason, the principle of formulating the elixir, the pharmacological properties, and the role of each material in it, as well as the reaction process, they were all written in extremely detailed and well-founded terms, leaving no room for refutation by Silton and others. Ahem, Rudolph, Which family in your kingdom is this Jason from? Just when everyone was shocked, Silton suddenly said. The other elixir masters around him all pricked up their ears, waiting for Rudolph's answer. A descendant of which family? Rudolph was stunned for a moment. After understanding what Silton meant, he couldn't help but smile. This Jason is a direct descendant of the Todd family in the kingdom. The Todd family? Silton and others, their expressions darkened. Originally, they still had Xiao Jiujiu in their hearts and wanted to see if there was any chance of kidnapping Jason to their own kingdom, but they didn't expect that Jason actually belonged to the Todd family. The Todd family is one of the 3 major families in the Kingdom of Orlando, the 5 most powerful countries in the Northwest. The Wushuan family that established the Kingdom of Orlando is naturally extremely loyal to the Kingdom of Orlando. And since Jason is a direct descendant of the Todd family, he is naturally not Silton, and the others can abduct him at will. Rudolph, why did you find such a geek? After a long time, Master Silton and others couldn't help but sigh, and said to Rudolph with extremely jealous expressions, "We have such a disciple, you will have an heir to Rudolph's mantle." In addition to studying elixirs wholeheartedly, elixir masters like Silton and others also have another important thing in mind, which is to be able to apply what they have learned throughout their lives. Pass it on, so a disciple who is extremely talented in spiritual medicine is something they are extremely eager for. Originally, Sri Lanka, Loken, and Jimmy were all the best in the same kingdom, and their talents in elixirs were no less than what they were back then. But now, after 3 competitions, seeing Jason's stunning performance with his outstanding performance, all the elixir masters were filled with jealousy towards Rudolph. A peerless genius like Jason has such a deep understanding of the true meaning of elixirs, and has such strong control over spiritual consciousness and spiritual power, and his current talent in material science is also so appalling. Such a genius, then, but it only happens once in 1,000 years. If Jason continues to show great talent in the next 2 competitions, I am afraid that Silton and the others will be so jealous that they will vomit blood. Haha, Master Silton, this Jason is not my disciple. After hearing what Silton and the others said, Rudolph hurriedly explained. Not your disciple? Rudolph, are you kidding? Is there anyone else in the Kingdom of Orlando who can teach such a strong disciple? You are too dishonest. The masters from other countries all looked down upon him with contempt. With Rudolph. This Rudolph is the number 1 elixir of the Orlando Kingdom, and Jason is also from the Orlando Kingdom. Apart from Rudolph, they don't believe that anyone else in the entire Orlando Kingdom can be Jason's mentor. Rudolph smiled bitterly, pointed to the answer sheet in Silton's hand, and said, "Do you think I can teach such a person with my strength?" All the masters were stunned, then frowned and thought for a moment. He frowned and said, "That's true. We all know your strength, Rudolph. So what Jason wrote on this piece of paper, even you, Rudolph, may not be able to tell. These number 1 in the Northwest countries, not to mention anything else, the elixir masters meet every time at the Elixir Master Conference held every 4 years. Naturally, they all know their respective strengths quite well, and they don't believe that Rudolph can teach such a disciple. Could it be that? Another possibility suddenly emerged in everyone's mind, and they hurriedly turned to Rudolph. Rudolph, I wonder where this Jason studied under? Rudolph shook his head and said, I don't know about that. It was obvious that the masters did not believe what Rudolph said, but after seeing that Rudolph was unwilling to speak, they all closed their mouths with some enlightenment. The person who can make people like Rudolph remain silent, that person, their identity is definitely far beyond their level. Indeed, with the talent Jason is showing now, even the 4 major empires on the mainland are absolutely amazing. And only such a being is qualified to teach a genius like Jason. Just when all the masters were deep in thought, a burst of gongs and drums suddenly sounded in the square. Then under the host's shout, all the contestants stopped their pens and handed in all their examination papers. The host immediately sent it to Silton and other masters. Silton and others stopped sighing and began to review the test papers of the remaining 101 contestants. No, 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 what did this player write? It's a mess, a failure. Oh, this pharmacological analysis is obviously wrong, and they still forcefully move it up. This player, oh, really? Today's little guys are really inferior to the previous generation. A generation has passed. With Jason Juyu in front, the test papers for the remaining contestants immediately made Silton and others upset. So, with a swipe of a pen, a large number of contestants were eliminated, and the final count at 1 o'clock, only 21 people were left to enter the fourth level. Among them, Loken, the best one, only answered 8 out of 10 formulas, Sri Lanka, Jimmy and Alice answered 7, and the rest only answered 6, which was similar to Jason's 13. The comparison is not only a matter of quantity, but also a qualitative difference. Jason not only answered all 10 formulas, but also gave 3 unprecedented new formulas. This kind of strength is simply shocking. Soon, the remaining 21 contestants were all standing next to the low table and entered the fourth round of assessment. Those who can enter the fourth round are all the best in each country, and they are all very knowledgeable in spiritual medicine. Once the competition is over, they will be valued by their respective countries, and then they will do their best to cultivate them. They are all people who will become masters of elixirs in the future. When the audience and players saw that Jason, who had just handed in the test within a few minutes, could still appear on the competition stage in the fourth game, they thought of Jason's outstanding performance before, and some players almost died in frustration. Look at others, they can pass the test by just writing a few recipes in a few minutes, then look at yourself? Even after grinding until the end, he was dismissed. This comparison between people is so irritating. The third round tests the contestants' understanding of materials science, and this fourth round tests your understanding of pharmacology. On the high platform, the host shouted into the microphone, on the white paper in the box in front of the contestants, there are 5 kinds of elixirs written on them. The requirement of the fourth level is to write down the preparation of these 5 kinds of elixirs, the materials for the potion, and then explain the role of each material in the elixir. The assessment time is 1/4 of an hour. Now, I announce that the fourth competition will begin. As the host finished speaking, everyone the player quickly thought about the formula for the first of the 5 elixirs on the white paper. Just when some contestants had just figured out the formula for the first elixir and were about to start writing, suddenly, there was another uproar in the originally extremely silent audience. I saw Jason, who had handed in his paper in advance in the previous session, holding the white paper in his hand and handing it to the host. The host, who had just announced the start of the competition, was even more stunned when he saw Jason handing in the paper so quickly. Isn't this too perverted? Just as the host was stunned, suddenly, an impatient shout came from the VIP table. Quickly, hand over Jason's answer. The host turned around and saw Master Silton and others on the referee's bench, all standing there at this moment, looking eagerly at the jackpot in his hand. Sen's exam paper, with an anxious look on his face. The look in his eyes was like that of a beggar who had been hungry for 10.5 days, and saw a table of sweet and delicious food, naked and without any cover-up. Wonderful, wonderful. Jason actually wrote down all the formulas and preparation processes of these 5 elixirs in such a short period of time. How on earth did he do it? Look. For this last antibody potion, he actually gave an idea for improvement. Changing the tendon fixation agent to petrochemical, the antibody effect of the antibody potion will be increased by 30%. How did he know this? This antibody, the potion, is a 5th level low-grade elixir? He is an 18-year-old boy, and he actually has an improvement plan for a 5th grade low-grade elixir that we don't know about. Who is his mentor? At the referee's table, Silton and others did not care about their image as masters. After getting Jason's test paper from the host, they immediately started to marvel like nagging shrews. Although they spoke in extremely low voices, they still attracted the attention of the contestants on the stage and the audience. The masters who were originally noble and distinguished in their hearts were now too ungraceful. Rudolph on the side couldn't help but curl his lips as he listened to Silton and the others' exclamations. He looked at Silton and the others like he was looking at a group of old country men who came to the city for the first time. His eyes were full of despise. "I'm going to surprise you like this. If I let you know that Jason has prepared a 6th grade high-grade spirit potion, wouldn't it scare you to death?" Rudolph, who was so proud at this moment, had long forgotten that he had the first time I saw Jason prepare the 5th level high-grade sacred potion in order to save His Highness Prince Dios. The shock was no less than that of Silton and the others at this moment. While Master Silton and the others were extremely excited and shocked, Jason sat quietly in a corner of the competition table in a very low-key manner. What Silton and the others didn't know was that the formulas that made them extremely excited were just written by Jason at random. It's just a product that comes out. After 3,000 years of development and countless generations of efforts and improvements, the elixir science of later generations has reached an extremely rigorous and perfect state. Most of today's elixirs can be called perfect and the best elixirs. In Jason's eyes, it seems that it is full of countless shortcomings and loopholes. The abnormal reaction of Master Silton and the others also made the audience and the eliminated contestants all focus their attention on Jason, who was sitting quietly on the side of the competition stage, closing his eyes and concentrating. No one knew it, and unknowingly, starting from the first competition, this quadrennial spiritual medicine master conference held by the Northwest countries had completely evolved into a performance for Jason alone. Throughout the game, almost everyone focused all their attention on the 18-year-old boy. The unparalleled 6 levels of the first game were passed perfectly, the second game was 100% separation, and the third and fourth games took just a few minutes to hand in, but the answers aroused waves of excitement among the elixir masters at the referees' table. Discuss. It even shocked several elixir masters in the VIP seats. As the games progressed, Sri Lanka, Loken and others, who were originally optimistic about everyone, have gradually been reduced to supporting roles. On the high platform, Sri Lanka and Loken, who had been writing furiously, put away their pens at the same time, then suddenly picked up their answer sheets and handed them into the hands of the host. At this moment, it was only 10 years before the start of the fourth game. Minute. Look, His Highness Sri Lanka and Loken have also handed in their papers in advance. With the strength of the two of them, they will definitely be able to pass the fourth game. Now it's up to the last game. Although Jason is said to be extremely strong in every game, the last game has always been about the preparation of the elixir. Everything before was just one-sided theory and elixir science. This Jason's preparation of the elixir was I don't know what to do. TCH, I think everyone doesn't need to think about it. Looking at Jason's performance in the first 4 games, do we still need to consider it? That's impossible to say, Jason is only 18 years old. No matter how you say it, in terms of experience, they are not as good as His Highness Sri Lanka and Loken. While everyone was talking about it, after handing in their papers, Sri Lanka and Loken came to Jason at the same time and sat next to him. After deciding, the two looked at Jason with burning fighting spirit in his eyes. Although you came out on top in the previous 4 games, this last one is the most critical, and I will definitely defeat you in this last one. The two of them spoke to Jason almost at the same time, then he closed his eyes and stopped talking. Although the results of this 4th game have not yet come out, Sri Lanka and Loken both know that Jason and themselves will pass. Thinking of the previous games, as the proud sons of the kingdom, they were completely reduced to supporting roles. A fire of dissatisfaction burned in his heart. According to past practice, this last scene usually involves the actual preparation of the elixir. In this regard, both Sri Lanka and Loken are full of confidence. Yes, Jason is very strong and has excellent talents in all aspects. But in addition to talents in all aspects, the real preparation of elixirs also has a very important factor, and that is experience. Sri Lanka and Loken, both of them were shouting crazily in their hearts. No matter how strong Jason is, he is only 18 years old. I still don't believe that with my nearly 10 years of experience in preparing elixirs, he will lose this last game to him. I must win this last round, and the champion of this spiritual medicine conference will definitely be mine. The two gathered their minds, adjusted their state, and prepared for the final competition. The answers from Sri Lanka and Loken were quickly sent to Silton and the others as judges. Both of them answered 4 questions correctly. Regarding the antibody potion, Sri Lanka and Loken both failed to answer it. Silton and others had a trace of regret on their faces. However, they all know that being able to answer 4 questions correctly is already an excellent result. After all, this antibody potion is a 5th-level low-grade elixir, but Sri Lanka and Luo Kuan are only 4th-order low-grade elixir masters. Even if they in erudition, no matter how diligent you are, it is impossible to know so much about these 5th-level elixirs. Even if you see them, you only have a brief understanding of them, and naturally you cannot answer them. As for why Jason was able to answer all the questions, Silton and others attributed it to 2 words: monster. If Sri Lanka and Loken are geniuses among elixirs, then Jason is the monster among geniuses. In a short time, a quarter of an hour passed quickly. Under the host's shout, everyone stopped writing and handed in the examination papers. After final approval by Master Silton and others, only 6 of the original 21 people made it to the finals. In addition to Jason, Sri Lanka, and Loken, there are also Alice, Jimmy, and Marty from the small kingdom of SNA. In previous elixir conferences, dark horses like Marty would definitely be touted and discussed by countless people. But in this conference, all the players' light was overshadowed by Jason. Even Sri Lanka, His Highness, and Loken both suffered this fate, not to mention the one named Marty. What surprised Rudolph was that Alice actually entered the finals. After all, Rudolph knew that Alice had not been promoted to the 3rd-level senior elixir for a long time. After several competitions, even some veteran 3rd-level elixir masters in the kingdom, all the senior elixir masters were eliminated. It was not easy for Alice to pass all the way to the finals. In this edition of the Magic Medicine Master Conference, among the 6 finalists, 2 are actually from the Kingdom of Orlando. No matter what the final result is, Jason's outstanding performance and Alice's unexpected selection, the Kingdom of Orlando has become this time's winner. One of the biggest winners at the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference. After announcing which 6 people entered the finals, the host announced the end of the morning meeting. After an hour's break, it continued in the afternoon. Only then did the audience come to their senses. Unknowingly, the time had already reached noon, and the sun was already shining brightly above everyone's heads. After all the masters and players in the VIP seats returned to the Elixir Guild, no one in the audience left. They all discussed the morning's game enthusiastically, and the topic of discussion was naturally Jason. 2 words. Some vendors who passed the inspection by the guards also pushed their carts and sold lunch to people in the square. An hour passed quickly. Boom! With the sound of high-pitched gongs and drums, Master Silton and other elixir masters from various countries walked out of the Elixir Masters Union again, and then sat down at the VIP table. After Jason and other 6 finalists stepped onto the stage, the entire square burst into thunderous applause. During this morning's competition, many spectators' palms were red and painful, but they were still full of excitement and generously gave their applause to their favorite players. Well, it's been so long. I think all the viewers are already impatient. To be honest, I can't wait. The host's words immediately caused a burst of laughter from the entire audience. Okay, in that case, I won't say any more nonsense. Let's start the 5th competition of the contestants directly. This is also the last final of this Elixir Master Conference. As the host's words fell, teams of guards have placed a lot of materials on 6 large tables in the middle of the competition platform. In addition to those materials, there are also a large number of instruments used to prepare elixirs. After all the instruments and materials were brought up, 6 guards with shining lights and strong bodies came to each table under everyone's doubtful eyes. Soon, Jason and the others were standing in front of their low tables. Jason's number this time was the last number 6, while Loken, Alice, Marty and Sri Lanka were numbered 1 to 5 respectively. Number. Not far away, Sri Lanka looked at Jason coldly, his eyes boiling with strong fighting spirit and full of confidence in himself. Jason ignored it and focused his attention on the muscular guard in front of his low table. While Jason was sizing him up, the guard was looking at Jason coldly, with no expression on his face. What do those 6 guards do? I don't know. Is it related to this last competition? Sure, don't you see that each of them has a number? But these guards look like what does an ordinary spiritual master have to do with the last competition of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference? Under the stage, the audience was full of doubts and started talking. In the previous competitions, there were only a few guards standing around the high platform, and now there is a guard standing in front of the low table in front of each player. More importantly, each guard has a number on the back, which makes the audience puzzled. At this time, 4 guards wearing armor and with shining eyes came up from the distance again. These 4 people were carrying a huge instrument about 1 person tall in their hands. They were breathing heavily, and the weapons on their arms where the muscles are knotted and the veins are bulging. What is this? It seems to be a dynamometer? A dynamometer? What are you doing carrying the dynamometer over at the competition venue of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference? Okay. Seeing the 4 guards carrying the instrument after being lifted to the competition stage, a smile suddenly appeared on the host's face, and he immediately said, I think everyone present should be very curious about what the topic of this 5th competition is. Before that, I have to first let me introduce these 6 spiritual masters and this instrument. These 6 spiritual masters come from the palace guards of the Eastern Kingdom. They were carefully selected by the Spiritual Medicine Masters Union. They do not know any of the players on the field and have nothing to do with them. Every one of them we have reached the pinnacle of the 3rd level senior spiritual master, and more importantly the host's voice rose in vain, everyone, please see, from the 1st to the 6th, each of you tried your best, on the dynamometer. Punch. Yes. The 6 guards shouted at the same time, and in order walked to the front of the dynamometer. Drink. Guard number 1 standing in front of Loken took a deep breath, his eyes flashed, and the spiritual power in his body vibrated out. Then he punched out fiercely, and a rapid whistling sound suddenly appeared in the air. The guard's iron fist had already hit the dynamometer heavily at the next moment. Bang ding. 5002 kilograms. A clear voice sounded, and a number suddenly appeared on the big screen. Wow. There was an uproar from the audience below. 5002 kilograms. If it hits a person with 1 punch, it can beat a strong man to pieces. A 3rd level senior spiritual master is a 3rd level senior spiritual master. The power of 1 punch is so powerful. However, while the audience was marveling, they were still full of doubts. They didn't know what the host was buying, and whether the guard was strong or not, but did it have anything to do with the competition at the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference? After the number 1 guard finished the blow, the number 2 guard also stepped forward and punched with all his strength. Bang! Ding! The big words 5001 kg suddenly flashed on the big screen. Then the 3rd guard stepped forward and also punched hard. 5002 kilograms. By this time, a few smart audience members seemed to have vaguely guessed what these guards were doing. In the end, all 6 guards hit their heaviest punch, and the weight of each person's punch hovered between 4999 kilograms and 5002 kilograms. After the 6 guards walked back to the low table where the players were standing, the host said with a smile on his face, I think all the viewers present have clearly seen that the strength of these 6 guards is at the peak of the 3rd level senior spiritual master, and more importantly, their strongest powers are extremely close, with almost no difference. And the question for this fifth competition is the host's face suddenly became serious, and he faced Jason and the other 6 people. The contestant solemnly said, "In front of each contestant, there are 150 kinds of materials for you to choose from. What you have to do is to use these materials to prepare an elixir. As for what kind of elixir it is up to you to decide the time for 1 hour. After 1 hour, the elixir you have prepared will be given to the guards in front of each person. After each guard takes the elixir, he will pass the dynamometer test. In the end, the contestant whose guard has measured the greatest strength will be the champion of this year's Elixir Master competition." Wow! The audience below suddenly burst into an uproar. This question was too tricky and weird, and it was too innovative. So that's it, these guards are used to test the efficacy of the elixir prepared by each player, I say. Such a question can not only test each player's ability to prepare elixirs, but also allow all spectators on the field to intuitively see which player's elixirs are more effective. But while all the viewers were marveling at the ability of this Elixir Master competition to choose such a topic, some viewers couldn't help but feel a little worried. The premise of the fairness of the results of this competition is based on the 6 guards. If there is any, did the guard have selfish motives in his heart and did not use his full strength during the final test? Then wouldn't the final result be unconvincing? As if he knew the doubts in the hearts of the audience and contestants, the host waited for the noise in the audience to quiet down, and then said with a smile, "Some people may doubt the fairness of the final result. Please don't worry. These 6 guards were carefully selected by the Elixir Masters Union and tested by several Elixir Masters and top experts from the Northwest countries. During the final test, there were several Masters on the referee's bench. If any guard dares to do anything, I think he will be punished with a punishment that he cannot bear at this point." The host looked at the 6 guards with a cold look on their faces. A heart-chilling smile. After hearing what the host said, the audience immediately felt relieved. That's right. With Silton, Rudolph and other Elixir Masters here, as well as Nowitzki, Dylan and other top masters from various kingdoms, those guards wouldn't dare to have any small thoughts. Even if they did, with the strength of several masters, it can be seen at a glance. So, did you all hear clearly the contestants who made it to the finals? Do you have any objections? The host turned his attention to Jason and the others and asked. Jason and the others nodded slightly, indicating that they heard clearly. As for objections, nonsense, so what if there are objections? Can the other party still change the topic for you? Okay, now that everyone understands, well, the 5th assessment begins now, the host shouted, and the hourglass of the timer suddenly began to run out. The entire competition stage was filled with a tense atmosphere. Interesting. Luakuan and Sri Lanka both looked at each other, and then fell on Jason. A trace of strong confidence flashed in their eyes, and then they began to think deeply. In this 5th game, we are not simply given an extremely difficult elixir for everyone to prepare, nor are we asking each player to prepare the most powerful elixir they can. A very flexible question. There are too many spiritual potions that can improve a spiritual master's power. According to different categories, there are too many spiritual potions that can improve the spiritual power of a spiritual master, some that can increase the spiritual master's level, and some that can improve the physical strength of a spiritual master. Each of them spiritual potions can increase the spiritual master's attack power to varying degrees depending on their effects. The 6 players present must use all the 150 materials on the field and their own understanding of the elixir to prepare an elixir that can increase the maximum strength of the guard in front of them. This is not only a test of an elixir master's proficiency in preparing elixir potions, but also a test of an elixir master's emergency response capabilities. More importantly, this 5th competition also stipulates a time of 1 hour. Although Sri Lanka and Loken are 4th-level low-level elixir masters, the preparation of some high-level elixirs takes a long time, and mistakes must be taken into consideration. The limited materials, limited time, and flexible preparation allowed the 6 players present to almost stand on the same starting line. Before the title of the 5th game came out, the vast majority of the audience believed that the final champion was most likely to be among the 4th-level low-level elixir masters Sri Lanka and Loken, followed by Jason, and then Alice and 3 others. But after the question came out, although these viewers still believed that Sri Lanka and Loken had the advantage, they were no longer so sure. In this last game, anyone could win the final championship. As a result, the audience immediately became more enthusiastic in the discussion. After all, the unknown ending can make people look forward to it more, right? For a moment, everyone in the audience looked back and forth at the 6 players on the field, wanting to see what kind of elixir they would decide to prepare. Gah? What's going on? Some viewers glanced at Luo Kuan and others. Luo Kuan and others were looking at the materials in front of them and frowning in thought. There was nothing unusual. But when they fell on Jason, the audience couldn't help but be stunned. Jason was standing in front of table number 6, but he didn't even look at the materials in front of him, nor did he stand there thinking about which elixir to prepare. Instead, he spoke to the guard in front of him. What is going on? This is the finals of the Spiritual Medicine Master Conference. Jason is still in the mood to chat with the guards? Looking at the nervous Sri Lankan and other players, and then looking at Jason chatting and laughing with the guards, the audience really didn't know whether to say that Jason had a good attitude and was confident, or that there was something wrong with his brain. All the viewers were very depressed. Like all the viewers, Master Silton and the others suddenly showed a look of doubt on their faces after seeing Jason chatting with the guard. Then what is Jason doing? Dubai couldn't help but said, at this time, he is still thinking about chatting. He doesn't take the competition seriously, right? Jason is not that kind of person, is he? So what's the meaning of doing it? Rudolph also asked doubtfully. I think so, but I don't know what the deep meaning of this Jason is. After all, no matter how arrogant Jason is in normal times, he is now the quadrennial elixir master conference of the Northwest countries. He shouldn't be so unrestrained after thinking about it. Roberts. He also commented, after watching his previous 4 games, you know that he does not look like that kind of person. Could it be Master Silton, who had been thinking deeply, seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly lit up? Is it possible that Jason is understanding the guard's situation and wants to specially prepare the elixir based on the guard's spiritual characteristics? Specially prepared? Master Silton, are you kidding me? There was an obvious hint in Dubai's tone. Disdain, then Jason is only 18 years old, specially prepared? Even a few of us dare not say that we are sure about this, right? Then Jason, guess I think he doesn't take this game seriously at all. Today's young people are so arrogant, they think they are great if they have some ability. I really don't know how high the sky is. Master Silton and others were lost in thought. Dubai was right, although the elixir can be taken according to it is specially prepared for the user's condition. But even 5th level and 6th level elixir masters like them do not dare to try it at will. Although Jason is a genius, if he has this ability, Silton Master, they don't believe it. For a moment, Master Silton and others were lost in thought. While everyone below was confused and had their own opinions, Jason on the stage didn't care and was still chatting with the guard. Are you the palace guard of the Eastern Kingdom? How old are you? What's your name? Although the guard looks very tough, in the Eastern Kingdom, as a palace guard, he is also quite majestic. But now in front of Jason, he was extremely cautious. Although he didn't understand why Jason asked him this, he still answered cautiously, yes, sir, Sanji, this year is 35. Sanji knew that he could enter the finals of the quadrennial Spiritual Medicine Master Conference in the Northwest countries. The achievements of these players in the future are limitless. Although the opponent still looks like a child, it is not something that his little guard can offend. 35 years old, huh? Jason nodded and smiled at Sanji, right? Don't be nervous. What are the attributes of the skills you practice? Infected by Jason's smile, then Sanji's expression obviously softened a lot, and he said, "Sir, I practice the fire-type Agni fire technique." At this point, Sanji, who was originally cold-looking, couldn't help but smile honestly, with a hint of embarrassment in his expression. This expression immediately broke his previous cold disguise, revealing his true nature. The Agni fire technique is a very common set of fire-based exercises in mainland China. It is a popular type of product. Basically, half of the 10 fire-type spiritual masters practice Agni fire technique. This set of exercises does not require much talent in the spiritual masters. Rather, it requires spiritual masters to persist in continuous practice to achieve certain results. Among the spiritual masters, those who practice such mainland products show that the status of these spiritual masters is not high. Jason nodded and said, "Sanji, come here and let me feel the spiritual power in your body." Sanji hesitated for a moment, turned to look at the host not far away, and found that the host had not made any prohibitions. After making a move, he took 2 steps forward and walked to Jason. Jason put his right hand on Sanji's chest, and his spiritual consciousness quickly entered Sanji's body, and he carefully sensed various situations in his body and the spiritual power running in his meridians. After seeing Jason's action, Master Silton and others in the VIP seats were immediately dumbfounded. This Jason really wouldn't want to specially prepare a bottle of the best medicine for the guard based on the guard's physical condition. Is it a spiritual potion suitable for the guard? No wonder Silton and the others were so surprised. Generally speaking, the formula and ingredients of each spiritual potion are extremely strict and precise. For example, when preparing the spirit-restoring potion, all the elixir masters on the mainland use the same formula, and the amount of materials added is also fixed. After all, the spirit potion is an extremely precise thing, and any change in the materials will have a huge change in the effect of the medicine, and may even be completely opposite to the desired effect. There are really too many fields involved. Even Silton, who is a 6th-level low-level elixir master, understands the principle of using medicine according to people, but he does not dare to change it at will when preparing elixirs. What? Today's young people. Master Silton and others couldn't help but shook their heads. They are too ambitious. Although because of the previous 4 competitions, Master Silton and the others were not as smart as Jason at such a young age. The young man with such a profound knowledge in medicine felt a little admiration, but now after seeing Jason's action, instead of admiring Jason more, he felt a little dissatisfied. You, Jason, are a genius, but you are only an 18-year-old boy after all. No matter how powerful your mentor is, some things cannot be taught to you casually by others. Instead, you need to constantly explore and fail on your own before you can summarize it. Out of experience. Just like how to prepare special elixirs for different people based on their different physical conditions, even Master Silton didn't dare to say that they would be successful, but Jason did it. Although the idea was good, the elixirs, it's not like other things. If there is something wrong with the prepared elixir, if it is given to the guard, it will be the body of the guard that is harmed. Naturally, Sri Lanka and others on the side could see Jason's actions clearly. You want to make medicines for people? Ugh. Sri Lanka couldn't help but sneered in his heart. Do you still think you are a master of elixirs? Even a master of elixirs would not dare to do this casually, right? This requires a lot of experiments and research. Only then can the final decision be made. But now this is a competition, and the time is only 1 hour. It's really grandstanding. Both Sri Lanka and Loken shook their heads. It turned out that before the game, both of them had regarded him as his biggest enemy to win the championship. Now when he saw Jason's actions, he couldn't help but feel a little funny, and he didn't take Jason seriously at all. After thinking for a while, Sri Lanka finally determined the elixir he wanted to prepare. His hands quickly passed between the herbs and materials. Sri Lanka's hands turned into a phantom in an instant. In an instant, the low table in front of Sri Lanka, several materials have been laid out. Okay. The audience in the audience burst into cheers after seeing Sri Lanka's skillful and dazzling moves. The materials selected by Sri Lanka are all the most expensive and precious among the 150 materials. The reason why medicinal materials are precious is generally because of their powerful medicinal effects and the degree of cherishment. The elixir that Sri Lanka wants to prepare is a third-level high-grade spiritual enhancement elixir. This kind of elixir can make a third-level spiritual master or below. For a person, the spiritual power level in the body increases by 1 level in an instant. It is a very rare and precious spiritual potion in the world of spiritual masters. After selecting all the materials, Sri Lanka calmed down and exhaled a long breath. When his mind was as calm as water and empty, his eyes suddenly burst into light, and a medicine bowl appeared at the next moment. In Sri Lanka's right hand, he carefully handled every material in front of him. When Sri Lanka decided on the elixir he wanted to prepare, Loken and others on the side also made their decision. For a while, the other 5 people except Jason all used their own methods to prepare it. Look, His Highness Sri Lanka's process of processing this nether spirit fruit is so smooth and smooth. Loken's understanding of materials is indeed profound. The selection of these materials is absolutely amazing. This is amazing. The Qingling fire liquid that Jimmy chose must be one of the most precious among the 150 kinds of materials. I heard that 1 drop costs tens of thousands of spirit coins. Suddenly, there was an uproar from the crowd. Sound, 1 drop costs tens of thousands of spirit coins. This is too exaggerated. Some small nobles secretly calculated and were shocked to find that many of the materials selected by these contestants on the stage exceeded their entire net worth. Of course, the vast majority of the audience did not understand the materials and the preparation of elixirs at all, but this did not prevent them from watching with gusto. It would be a great honor to be able to see His Highness Sri Lanka and others preparing the elixirs and tell them about it in the future. Time passed minute by minute, and half an hour passed very quickly. However, what shocked all the audience was that Jason still had his eyes closed, with his right hand on the guard's chest, and he didn't know what he was doing. What is this Jason doing? Isn't he giving up? The total time of this competition is only 1 hour. What are you doing? Time passed slowly. Successful. Suddenly, Marty from the Scenic Kingdom shouted loudly. Turning his hands, a bottle of fiery red elixir with bright red light was quietly placed on his low table. Leave it alone. Phew, I succeeded too. At this moment, Jimmy number 2 also shouted. On the low table in front of him, a bottle of light red elixir was quietly placed there. With only 10 minutes left between games, Marty, Jimmy, and Alice all prepared their own elixirs, while Sri Lanka and Loken were also in the final stages of finishing. Jason, who had been observing the guard's physical condition with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes at this time, and a ray of light flashed through his eyes. After pondering for a moment, Jason came to the low table and glanced at all the materials on the table. In the last 10 minutes, Jason was finally ready to prepare his own elixir.